Hello everybody. Well, this time we're not just going into geography, we're also going to go a little bit into history. Now you're probably wondering what's Tannzapfen. Well, Tannzapfen actually means pine cones, but to me it's also a region of Switzerland where the roots of my family are. In the village where I grew up, there was also an artist who did sketches in the region, and he also published a booklet with various sketches of small towns. So you'll see as the story progresses that we have some pictures of his work. Well, this is Schönau, and Schönau has a big meaning for me because that's where my grandmother was born. Now, my grandmother was born and grew up in this farmhouse in Schönau. She was born in 1875, and my grandfather was born 1875 as well, but he grew up in Dusnang. Now, they got married in 1898 in Fischingen. The monastery in Fischingen got established in 1135, and also by coincidence my brother Paul and Therese got married in 1971 in the same church. Lived in Dusnang, and in 1907 commissioned a contractor to build them a house for the grand sum of 12,700 francs. The house still standing, and the widow of one of my cousins is living there, and it's holding up well. As you can see on this map, at the very bottom is Dusnang, where my grandparents and family grew up, and then my dad purchased a property in Eschlikon, and I grew up there, and Paul ended up in Pichelsee, which is more or less in the center of the map there. So this is part of the Tannzapfenland, and we're going to do a bit of exploration. Pichelsee actually is quite an old town, and as you can see in the sketch, it's typical construction with lumber. This is from Paul looking out of Paul's window and he was kind enough to raise the Canadian flag. Now, we didn't have sunny days every day. We actually had quite a bit of rain at times, which kind of explains a lot of that lush grass. He's again looking from a hiking trail at a big farm complex there. As you can see, that there's a lot of forested areas, and hence the name of Tannzapfenland. Hiking trails, of course, are combined with farmers using them, but really good shape and easy walking. Looking southeast, and then you can see it's quite hilly. Looking east, you can see the village I grew up with, which has tripled in size since I was a kid. When I was a kid, we had a population of 600 people, and somebody set up a little honey collection operation in the woods. Amazing looking little beehives, and surprisingly, that late in the year they were still busy gathering. This is Paul's friend's farmhouse, and obviously well taken care of. The other thing too I noticed, there's still a big demand for firewood lumber, and this fellow actually in a small town was made his business to chop up wood and sell it for firewood. As you probably noticed, agriculture is still a big part of the economy in the smaller towns, and there's also big concerns about the trash, and there was this poster on one of the farms that basically says garbage kills animals, and we're happy to notice that actually people really made an effort to not leave anything behind. If they go for a picnic, everybody, what you bring in trash, you bring it back. Now this farmers was quite proud to hang up some of the old hardware that he used while he was still working the farm with horses. Of course, he had to have the bells up there. And this is kind of proof that yes, it does rain quite a bit in Switzerland, so it has enough moisture there that moss is growing under its roof. The other thing I noticed that the mailboxes seem to be all the same in Switzerland, so I wonder whether the postal service actually has a standard size. This farmer obviously was into big time exercises, and also looks like he was like doing a bit of wood carving. It's quite a sculpture. This is Pichelsee, and last summer they did some deep digging and did some core sampling and discovered that this area actually even 5,000 years ago was already being farmed, and it's amazing when you look back that they're not sure whether anywhere between 13,000 to 5,000 years ago. 13,000 was basically the end of the last ice age, and when exactly they started working this area wasn't quite clear, but there's definite proof that 5,000 years ago it was already being farmed, the area, which is quite amazing. This cow kind of took a shine to me. It just kept watching me, or I guess maybe I thought I was going to feed it some first class grass. And then we went on another nice hiking trip, and all this is in the neighborhood. Now this is looking east, and this is Mount Sentis, which is visible on a clear day from our house at home. We ended up on top of this forested area, and oddly enough the name of that hill was called Kabbishaupt, which means cabbage head, and you can see also the signs always tells you where you want to go and gives you the time it takes to get there. Also in this area they had, because it's right along the border between Kanton Zurich and Kanton Thurgau, the exactly stones that remark the border, and also they was set up in 1913, so those markers were there for a while. On the way down we came across this lumber cutting area where they were clearing out some old, mostly beeches, the citrus trees, and also some spruce trees, but they were quite huge. And there was this one log that Karen really took interest in, and it was red wood, so we suspect it was a wild wild cherry. When I grew up, there was in several of the areas they had sawmills. We had one in our village, the next village to the east had a sawmill, and the village to the west had a sawmill. So it was quite a big industry. Well, back in the village again, and you can see some of the beautiful old houses, timber frame construction. And also there's this lady in the village that does sculpturing with her chainsaw, and she's quite a skilled artist. Look at that stack of books. It's actually carved out of a tree or a log, I guess. Well, back to hiking, heading up towards Hernley, which is the highest point in Thurgau. Also the highest point in Tannzapfenland. And towards the end, things got really serious, huffing and puffing. But we did enjoy the view from up there. You can see it's the valley below is Tannzapfenland, and in the far distance you see the Alps, just looking east towards the Kurfürsten. And on top of the mountain they have, well, not all mountains, but they have these triangle peak things that actually are designed for the surveyors. Underneath the center there's a survey marker, so they can actually measure from mountain to mountain, just take the peak, and then you know exactly what the elevations are. Finally, we made it to the top, and we enjoy a nice break. We had a little drink there and an apple. And Paul is checking his app on the phone, shows him the trails, which way to head back down. But first we had to go and have a coffee at this restaurant. This is one thing about Switzerland. If you're going to go up a mountain, one thing you always want to make sure there's a restaurant there, and the restaurant is open. And it's always the highlight of the hike. You go sit there and have a coffee and a nuskippel. These two peaks in the distance actually are in central Switzerland, so it always amazes me, I guess, how small the country is. And this is the tower that's actually a communication tower, but also has a weather station. So if you read the local paper and it tells you what the weather is going to be, it always refers to where Hernley, what the temperature is going to be and what the outlook is going to be. So it's quite interesting. You can see there's quite hilly, that area, and also there's never a shortage of signage, so you're never lost. And on the bottom you can see there's signage for the actual hiking trails. And we came across rabbits were happy to see us, and Karen, the rabbit whisperers, got them all excited. Well, back in Bichelsee again, and hunkering down for the day, take a rest. Well, it's time to check the mail. Oh, by the way, the little symbol on top there, this little Heinzelmann, actually was that Paul's wife's maiden name was Heinzelmann, and that's why they put the little sculpture on top there. Well, the story wouldn't be complete if I would introduce you to Susie. Susie is a turtle that had been living in Paul's family for over 30 years, and around this time of year just buries itself into the ground and hibernates. And usually Paul brings it in, but the rascal started digging itself in, so Paul had to give it a bath and dried it out, and here it is, the home for the winter. It puts in that box in a cool spot in the cellar, then it digs itself in. Now the other thing that Paul was instrumental, last few years he built this senior home in town, and it's quite impressive, and it's quite an achievement. Well, surprise, surprise, they also have cities there. Wiel is actually about 15-minute drive from Bichelsee, and it's quite an old city, and what used to be the main entrance into town, they closed it off to traffic, so it's just pedestrian traffic now, which makes it really nice. And the old part of the city actually was on a higher spot. I guess it made it easier to defend the town. It always amazes me in Switzerland how the older cities have these murals, and I guess maybe they had more civilized graffiti back then, but it's amazing, and they all tell a story. And now you can understand why the lumber industry was big back in the days, because the construction were using a lot of big lumber, especially spruce and fir trees, because they grew nice and straight. And to think that some buildings are 400 or 500 years old and still there's no sign of rot in the wood, it's always amazing. And what I liked to hear too was they actually had the buildings were actually projecting over the sidewalk, so it was easy to, even on a rainy day, to walk along there and stay dry. And here it seems to me they have these trap doors underneath the sidewalk where they would have access to the basement to deliver, or especially if there was a restaurant or so, they'd probably bring barrels of beer and wine down there. Again, no through traffic, just local traffic, which makes it nice for the pedestrians. And this is the east gate going out, so you can see how the way the city was designed was well protected. And this is the patron saint, a bishop. Again, fall color, even in Switzerland, leaves change, not as brilliant as they do in Canada. Canada was impressed that this outdoor cafe even provided blankets for people to sit there and have their coffee. And on the base, on the ground floor, they had this woodworking shop. And I also noticed that a lot of the shops were kind of related to arts and crafts. Our mums used to take us up there on weekends or during the week on Wednesday afternoons when the store was closed. And there's the gate on the east side of town. Well, we're back in Bichelsee, and looks like we're not all alone there. We got our furry friends as well. And here's Petra going to swim in Lake Bichelsee. Temperature 14 degrees. And there's Karen. Yahoo! Anyway, amazing to think that our ancestors already swam in there 5,000 years ago. But I hope you enjoyed the story, and we'll see you next time.